Synthaholics.
Welcome to Synthaholics. Thank you so much for downloading this episode. Today we are talking Dune, and what are we on, Dave? Is this like chapter 28? No, it's like 6 or 7.
Well, we do even numbers, so wouldn't that be 5 and 6? So
5 and 6.
We did 1 and 2. You and Holly did 3 and 4.
Uh-huh.
This is 7 and 8.
7 and 8. All right, yeah. We are on 7 and 8. Sorry, the problem is none of the
chapters.
They're
not numbered.
They're not numbered, so we don't know what they are.
They start off with spoilers, so you know you're in a new chapter once they're telling you spoilers for stuff that happens later on in the show. I mean the book.
Right, exactly. So we are now finally on Arrakis. We don't actually go through the space travel thing. They don't really spell that out, how the guild transports them, but they are now
in the big poopy log from Star Trek 4. They just go inside there and it just transports them. The whales were high on spice, and that's how they transport.
Maybe whales are actually sandworms that have been just evolved over billions of years.
Humpback sandworms.
Oh boy. The next 2 chapters were kind of centered on Lady Jessica and kind of like her processing what's going on. So we have she's in basically the place they decided they're going to make their main headquarters for the House Atreides, and it's
the
not
most exposed camp they have on Arrakis.
It's not their big city, so it's like a smaller place. It's a small garrison, like city or something like that. So it's not like
it's even a watering hole.
It's a small canteen watering hole, and so Jessica is like surrounded by box and trunks and people unloading things. You get the idea that she's kind of like standing in the middle while all these like laborers are just, moving. It's the moving people. So if you've ever been moved by professional movers, this is kind of it on like a scale of a zillion.
Except where some of the movers here might want to kill you too. So it's just like,
yes, that's possible.
You got to figure out which one you want to move the piano. And which one you don't.
No, put that anvil down. Don't drop that on my head. So they're doing all this work around her, and she is joined while she's kind of going through everything. She's joined by Duke Leto Atreides, and they kind of have I don't know if it's a heart to heart, but he's kind of like checking in on her and seeing how she's doing.
How much do you want to stare at this lovely boar's head?
Yeah, so as we alluded to last episode, so part of the Duke Leto's family has a giant portrait of his father in a Manador's costume, and then it's a boar's head or is it a bull's head? It's a black bull. It's a black bull.
Oh, bull. For some reason, I heard boar when I was listening to it.
And it's weird because a Manador,
Atreides are Spanish, of course.
It's funny because we're kind of like, a lot of people think that bullfighting is pretty barbaric now. So obviously, maybe that wasn't common thought, right?
It makes a comeback. I mean, come on, everything old is new, right?
We
just
haven't
like
done
microfilm.
What we haven't done in 100,000 years? Bullfighting. Let's get back into that.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father with your bullhorn. Prepare to die.
My name is Leto Atreides. You killed my father, bull. Now I kill you.
Sideways.
And apparently that is how his father died, because it has the blood of his father on the horns. which is we learn later.
And put in like they dipped it in resin so the blood will never come off.
Yeah, exactly. So weird. Yeah, so like I said, they're not in the. So I guess there's like a mega city on Arrakis called Carthage, and
Carthage.
Yeah, it's Carthage, Carthage.
Oh, just that's an Egyptian city, Carthage.
Yes, but they didn't go there. They went to a place 200 kilometers across 200 kilometers across the northeast of the Broken Land, and this place is called Arrakeen. So that's the place that they've decided to settle in.
Look at the rack on that one.
Yeah, right, exactly. And she's before the Duke shows up, she's kind of looking at the architecture and seeing like these big buttress walls and like these arch ceilings that have like giant pieces of timber holding up. And she was like, wondering,
this must have cost so much money.
Yeah, and it's funny because they are honestly, Leto. I don't know about the Harkonnens. They seem to be pinching pennies. They're very cost efficient. They're thinking about that. But back then, they didn't care. So
back in the good old days where we could spend money like it was going out of style.
Exactly.
Economics of the matadoring future are scary.
The spice really flowed back then. And so anyways, yeah, so it's like we get into this whole thing about the black bull head that's on this polished board and the portrait of the Duke's father. And then when the Duke shows up, he's more checking in on her, and he's trying to see how she's doing because he's like just rushing around everywhere. And we just find out that, he's kind of saying like, well, giving suggestions on places in this like palace area where they could make their rooms and they can start living, so they can set up where they're going to live. And anyway, so they go over kind of like just kind of getting settled in and how everything's going for getting settled in, and how the Duke and how it is been going through and making sure everything's secure, because obviously there's a big fear of a lot of the Harkonnen traps that have been left behind going on. So,
well, we just booby trip everything.
Right. So, but he does tell him that she, the Duke tells Lady Jessica that she's going to be given kind of a servant woman named Shadout Mapes, and I guess that has a meaning of well dipper.
I shout out to the Mapes, woo! Mapes,
shout out to the Mapes,
out, woo!
That's right, and I suppose, and that's supposed to be like a high regard or someone of high status if you're given that title of well dipper. So that's what shout-out means in as a Fremen language. Anyways, so they have a little back and forth, and they talk about, just the risk of being on Arrakis.
And Lady Jessica's judging her for her blue eyes. She's like, oh, she gets high on spice all the time.
You're always high. And it's kind of like she's kind of keeping quiet to the Duke, like biting her tongue, basically. That she's not totally cool with moving to Arrakis, but she's doing it because obviously the money involved and everything else. So, so from there, he takes off. He says, "Hey, I got to go. I got 100 other things to do, and I'm going to eat dinner with with my men or something like that. So I won't be having a formal dinner or anything like that."
So you can eat in your room by yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Like the sad, not married woman you are.
Concubine. Poor Lady Jessica. And then after the Duke leaves, Jessica has a sort of almost a breakdown for a moment where she's looking at this the painting of the old Duke, the Duke's father, and how she's kind of like angry about everything, and she starts going, "Damn you, damn you, damn you." And then who's right behind her?
It's me, the Shadout Mapes.
Hey guys.
Hey guys, I'm the Shadout Mapes. I might kill you later. I don't know. Feeling cute. Might kill you later.
So Jessica turns around and sees, as it described, as a knobby, gray-haired woman in a shapeless sack dress of a bondsman brown. The woman looked wrinkled and desiccated, as any member of the mob that had greeted them along the way from the landing field that morning.
Well, thank goodness she's not in a form-fitting still suit.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Every native she had seen on the planet, Jessica thought looked like prune-dried and undernourished. So, not a very flattering description of Shadout Mapes.
Oh, it's just going to be the sexiest scene when the Shadout Mape starts seducing her after Duke Leto dies.
Oh, Jesus. So she's, Shadout Mapes wants to know what her orders are. And she goes, she keeps on calling her Nobleborn. She's like, you can call me my lady. Let's be casual here. Casual Fridays.
Casual Sundays. Every single day is casual sand days on Arrakis.
Every day is sand day on Arrakis. There's a little back and forth about talking about how how important water is between the two, and she goes into talking about. What's funny is that she says, "My husband told me your title is Shadout." Jessica says, and I recognize the word as a very ancient word. And she goes, you know ancient tongues then? And he says, and Jessica responds, tongues are Bene Gesserit's first learning. And then she starts talking about different language that she knows.
She's talking about oral.
Yeah. She says she's a cunning linguist. And then she goes, and Mape says, just as the legend says. So there's this like prophecy, obviously, about a Bene Gesserit mother that would come, and obviously, basically, also a Messiah that's going to lead them out of their, hard lives that they've been.
Messiah. That's the third book, right?
No, I think it's the second, but
I thought Children of Dune was the second.
Oh, maybe you're right. I'd have to look again. So, anyways, and then she goes. Jessica further goes, I know the dark things and the ways of the Great Mother. And then she starts saying even some other bizarre languages that don't mean anything to us. And Shadout Mapes gets kind of scared, and she starts backing up because she's saying these words that must mean something to her, and it's freaking her out.
She's getting excited.
Not excited. She steps backwards and appears poised to flee. And then Jessica says, I know many things. I know that you have born children, and that you have lost loved ones, and that you have hidden in fear, and that you have done violence, and will yet do more violence. I know many things. And so this really freaks her out.
I'm Santa Claus.
What would you like for Christmas, little girl?
You've been a bad girl. You get sand.
Yeah, sand for everyone. No, not more sand. So she like I said, she freaks her out, and it says, Jessica then further says, you speak of a legend and seek answers. Before the answers you may find, I know you come prepared for violence with a weapon on your bodice. And she's like, what? How did you know that? And
I saw you in the shower.
I see that bulge in your pants. So then we find out, and it's funny because during this whole period, Jessica's trying to read the Shadout Mapes and seeing, is she going to become violent and try to attack me, or is there something more that here I'm not seeing, And, obviously Lady Jessica just probably call for guards and she'll, be taken care of and killed or whatever.
Put your hand in the bodice.
So, what we find out that when she asks her what she has, he says, the Shadout Mapes brings out the knife and says, do you know what this is, my lady? And she knows that this is a Christa knife of Arrakis, and these are blades that are made from ground down sandworms, the Shilahood. I think I'm saying that right.
The sandworm tooths?
Yeah, the tooth of the sandworm. So, and she...
The ideal weapon for sting.
Yes, exactly. And she goes, and she says, do you know its meaning? And then it's funny. Lady Jessica goes through these different thoughts about what the knife is and what it's about. And she was going to say it was a maker of death, but she first just says a maker, and she doesn't even finish what she's going to say. And this is when Shadout Mapes just screams out, "Ah!"
Yeah, she's excited.
Yeah. And it says a sound of both grief and elation, and she trembled so hard the knife blade sent a glittering shards of reflections shooting through the room. So, and Jessica's like, okay. But she knew that she said the right words, obviously.
Check, please. I'm going to go back to Kaladin.
Yeah, I'm going to go. And then what happens is, but Jessica plays it off like she's like almost like all-seeing, understanding. She's really playing the Bene Gesserit role here. Like, she knows what the hell's going on. Jessica says, did you think that I, knowing the mysteries of the Great Mother, would not know the Maker? And the Mapes lowers the knife. He goes, my lady, my lady. when one has lived with prophecy for so long, the moment of revelation is a shock. So,
poor Shadout Mapes. She shattered the pads.
Right. And she shows her the knife, and she takes the knife out of the sheath. And so basically telling her about it. And then when she's going to put the blade back, Jessica says, by the way, if that knife is unsheathed, you have to take blood with it. So Jessica knows a lot about this knife business for being on the first day of Arrakis. She must have
studied weapons for a long, long time.
I guess so. And so Shadout Mapes basically saying, you can take the water of my life. So basically, you can kill me with this knife. And Jessica grabs it and wonders even if if it's poisoned on the tip there. But she just takes a scratch with the blade's edge above Shadout Mapes' breast. So gives her a little cut. And notices that almost immediately her blood starts coagulating. And she goes, ultra fast coagulation. And he thought, is this a moisture conserving mutation? So there's just like the little thing about the Fremen that's thrown out there. We don't know if that's true or not, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, different biology.
So she doesn't kill the Shadout Mapes, but, basically just gives her a little cut.
Yeah, flesh wound, your highness.
And also interestingly, she goes, the Mapes has the knife sheath and says tells Jessica to keep it on her body, and anybody who sees the knife must be cleansed or slain. So anybody who sees it's got to be take a shower. I don't know what the cleansing part meant, but
yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe they'll get into that later. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, take a bath. I have to show you something. Here's a sponge.
So she says to conceal it on ourselves, and it says the uncleansed who have seen the crystal knife may not leave Arrakis alive. Never forget that, my lady. You've been entrusted with a crystal knife. And he took a deep breath and says, and now the thing must take its course. It cannot be hurried. And so people there's boxes everywhere. And she's like, there's plenty of work. What do you want me to do? So, and she says, take the portrait of the Duke's father, and take the bull's head and hang it on the great dining hall. So, and so there we have their interactions there. Oh, and one other thing that was interesting about the knife too is that it has to stay close to human flesh. I'm trying to find where it says here about this. It has to stay close to human flesh, or the knife will start to decay.
Yeah, it was something strange like that. It was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why that's the case, but
well, we have microfilm, so we have to believe this is true.
Yeah. So that kind of so that's how it ends. But actually, just before this chapter ends, the Shadout Mapes is cleaning up the wrapping and from the bull's head, and she says, "She's the one, all right." She mutters, "Poor thing." So,
well, Shadout Mapes just made sure she can't leave the planet. She just showed her something. Just can't go nowhere now.
Yeah, I know, right? Now she has to stay on the Arrakis. Now we go to the next chapter, and the refrain here is Yueh, Yueh, Yueh. A million deaths were not enough for Yueh.
Aww.
Poor Yueh. Lady Jessica is walking through the Palace some more, and she comes into a room with some empty bookcases and some things that are still being unpacked. And she sees Dr. Yueh, and he's looking outside the window. And Jessica kind of walks into the room, and she knows that Paul was like training with them or studying with Yueh for a little bit, and she asks about Paul.
Doctor wore him out.
Yeah, Doctor wore him out and gave him some sedatives. Okay, Bill Cosby.
Uh-oh. I mean, we did establish last week that Dr. Yueh's kind of creepy. Although some people have pushed back that he's no more creepy than anyone else. Like, I don't know about that. But,
Well, yeah, who was more creepy than Yueh in this? Besides Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I was confused at that too. But like, I think Yueh's pretty creepy. He's creepy on underage boys.
Yeah, and he keeps on seeing them or having them halfway asleep or knocked out. So,
and all naked.
Yeah, that's right. So the funny thing is, Yueh is very aware that Jessica is a Bene Gesserit, and she knows how to read and to see people's actions. So she's very attuned to how people act, and so because of that, he's kind of very cautious in what he says to her, because she's basically reading everything he says and does. And so they have this conversation about after they talk about Paul and about talking about just how nice it is to be young and fall asleep and not be worried about anything. Then they go into this whole thing about these date palm trees that are outside the palace on the window, and that people are looking at them. And Yueh kind of makes the observation that it says one date palm requires 40 liters of water. A man requires about 8 liters. A palm then requires equals to 5 men. And there are 20 palms out there, 100 men. So like that's how people see those date palms or trees. They're like, that's good water that could be keeping people alive right now.
Yeah, everything on Arrakis is very water focused. We pay for things in water. Everything's got a water equivalent. Right, yeah.
So, yeah, it's worth his weight in water and stuff like that. So, so Yueh's seeing it as like, we got to be careful, because even when we brought people here, people start freaking out about the idea that, we're bringing people and that water will be used for the people and other people won't be able to, have water to live. So that's as an issue. So as we go further in their discussion inside this room, looking out the window, they're both looking out the window, and they have a bit of candid conversation between each other. And basically Jessica's saying, I've known you for 6 years. You don't have to call me, my lady. You can call me Jessica. And because he calls her that by accident before. And he asks, how come the Duke never married her? And she was basically like, well, because
that damn bull's head.
That damn bull's head was too gross. No, but she says, because if he stayed unmarried, then it could bring hope that possibly that he could marry into another house, and that could bring, some kind of alliance in the future. So,
man, he'd have to marry Baron Harkonnen. That'd be a rough marriage.
That would be pretty weird.
Flies around with a little hover scooter.
Make me a sandwich, Duke Leto. Duke Leto, make me a sandwich. Get in the kitchen, make me a sandwich.
And then Yueh talks about his wife Wanda, how the Harkonnens had killed her, and so Jessica is like realizes that Yueh's been upset about has hatred about the Harkonnens. So she realizes that. So this whole conversation back and forth, basically, Yueh's trying to hold back that obviously he's making a deal with the Harkonnens, hopefully that his wife is still alive. And he's trying to hide it from her. And he thinks every time he tries to give her an honest answer, he tries to be very honest, but he is trying to hold things back so she doesn't see it or become alert to it. And
like, doesn't he have like some kind of like thing done to him where he can't say certain things or something like that?
Well, he has imperial conditioning, which basically means he can't. He shouldn't be able to double cross people, or he has this like serve honorably and that kind of thing. That's what my understanding is. I can look into that
because he kept on like the book kept on saying, and even this was truth. And, like, because like he had to dance around everything.
I yes, but I do think that part of it was that he knows that she's reading him. And he even says that his wife Wanda was a Bene Gesserit, and her truth saying was much more acute than Lady Jessica's.
Yeah.
Well, he realized that she couldn't read him as well as his wife Wanda could.
Yeah. It's just interesting because in the Wheel of Time series, the Aes Sedai have this thing done to them where they cannot tell a lie.
I can tell a lie.
But so like they just like warp the truth as much as they can when they talk, because people think they're really dishonest, even though like theoretically they can't lie.
Right.
So I just wondered if it was something similar that happened to him, where he just like physically cannot tell a lie.
Right. Yeah. And also we learned something real quick here too that we didn't know.
He's part Abraham Lincoln. I cannot tell a lie. I liked it.
The Atreides and the feud between the Harkonnens, how that got started, and it says it was a deep. The Harkonnens were banished for their cowardice of the Battle of Corinne. So we don't know what that is yet, but that's basically why the Harkonnens kind of hate the Atreides and back and forth, and. Yueh's like, yes, that was an old feud, so which has gone back for quite some time. And just real quick, then we get a whole thing about how the spice tastes like cinnamon at first when you first taste it, but then it starts changing every time you have it.
It's never the same, but it still tastes like cinnamon.
Lemon lime,
key lime cinnamon.
I know, right? So. Interesting that it keeps changing, but
today it's cocaine flavored cinnamon.
Yeah, cocaine flavored. So they kind of wrap up their conversation and talking about just their situation and everything and where they're at, and Jessica decides that she's going to leave, and just when she's leaving. She says that she thinks to herself, all this time we talked, he was hiding something, holding something back, she thought, to save my feelings, no doubt. He's a good man. Again, she hesitated, almost turning back to confront Yueh and to drag the hidden thing from him. But that would only shame him, frighten him to learn he's so easily read. I should place more trust in my friends. No, you shouldn't, Jessica. Not this time. So,
no, not.
So that wraps up those two chapters. Yueh seems a little more human in this chapter. He seems a little more. How should we say? He does care for their Atreides at some point, but he obviously cares for his wife Wanda more.
Yeah, I mean, like he seems more normal in this chapter, not as creepy as he came across in the last one. For
but he's still weird.
Oh yeah, I mean, Imperial conditioning will do that to you.
Yeah, and in the Shadout Mapes, that was an interesting interaction.
Interesting exchange.
Yeah. What they have between the two characters. I don't know really about the interaction between the Duke and Jessica, other than just trying to establish their relationship, and maybe that she's trying to be a dutiful wife, but she's got her doubts about everything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, so it's good stuff. Anything else you want to bring to this?
No, we're good. Hopefully next time we'll have Holly back, and there'll be three of us talking about Dune, so she's not left so far behind.
Yeah, Dune. True enough. Dune, don't get left behind or the sandworms will eat you.
Yes, they're very vicious.
Well, guys, I hope you're enjoying our Dune coverage. As always, if you have more to say or thoughts about what we're talking about, if we got something wrong, or if you say there's something we need to correct, let us know. You can email us at synthaholics@yahoo.com. You can hit us up on our Facebook groups page, Facebook.com/groups/Synthaholics. We'd love to hear from you. You can even tweet at us or message us on Twitter at Synthaholic Duo. And of course, if this show is something you want to help support and help us keep cranking out more shows like this, go to our Patreon.com/Synthaholics, and you can help us there. All right, guys, until next week, get your books out, start reading Dune, and
the spice must flow through the Shadout Mapes.
Shadout Mapes.
Put cinnamon in your drinks.
Hey guys, I'm Shadout Mapes. Shadout Mapes.
That's the official talk for Shadout Mapes from now on.
Shadout Mapes.
All right, guys. See ya.
Later.
Well, McCoy, my boy, come mix me a drink. Before the night's over, I'll puke in the sink, and we'll cry till we laugh, and we'll both shit our pants. You're the best drinking friend I ever had.